Today, I'm going to be guiding you through 3 easy to make watercolor paintings that are perfect if you're just beginning watercolors and want to experiment and create some colorful masterpieces. So first of all, you need some paintbrushes. I like to have a variety of different sizes, as well as some watercolor paints. These ones are from Noor. There's all different kinds of watercolor paints. There's ones in tubes, there's ones on palettes, and for this video, I'll be using these colors. So we're going to start first of all with the rooster. And this is going to be a very colorful rooster. So you want to take a thinnish brush, kind of fine like I have here. And we're going to start by using some red and making these kind of loopy lines up and down, bringing that line back down to the bottom and filling that in with a little bit of color. And also trying to make the color as even as possible. So just dipping your paintbrush in the water and in the paint and applying it to the page. For these artworks, we're also obviously using some nice watercolor paper because watercolor paper really does help absorb the color really nicely. So as we can see here, I'm just kind of going over and adding a little bit more color. Now we're going to take a slightly darker red and we're going to be creating the eye and sketching that in lightly and then coloring in that area. This is where we also are making the beak of this rooster. So the shape pointing out there is the beak, and just bringing in a little bit of color on the edges to sort of darken those so that you can distinguish them from the rest of the shape. Then we are also going to make that sort of shape that goes down on the chest, the sort of hanging bit on a rooster, and that is a nice rounded shape. So also with the same red, just adding a little bit of darkening on the edges. And yeah, so hopefully this has been easy for you so far. It's all just about shapes and kind of following the instinct of how the brush is going. So now we've added just this one little area where we'll be adding some other colors. So for the beak, we're going to just extend that out with a sort of gray, and it's sort of like a triangular shape, and then we can use that gray in a few other areas as well, and that will just sort of darken a couple and add a little bit of like depth and detail, and also adding a little eye over there for our rooster. Next up, we're going to carry on with another color. So we're going to dip our brush in this like orangey yellow color, and you're going to go to the top of the head and kind of continue those lines down. You're going to paint past the neck part and kind of continue down the stomach area of the rooster, and keep adding little bits of color, bringing that vibrancy in. Next up, we're going to come in with a slightly darker color along the outer edges and bring that color into the center of our other color. This is just to create sort of it's always nice to have a little bit of a darker color along the edges of your shapes to make them more defined. Then we are now going to come in with some lighter color. It's sort of like a creamy color, and just fill in the space, the shape next to the shape that we've just done. And now we're moving on to a very bright blue, kind of like a day sky blue, and that's going to come from where your stomach ended, and just continue that line down and round it a bit at the bottom, and try to blend the colors into each other using a little bit of water. Water will help kind of bring those colors into each other. We're now going to add also some yellow, just following on, and sort of bring that color next to the blue as much as possible. And then we're going in with a very bright red. So we're changing quite drastically to the next color, and that will fall down to the bottom shape of our rooster that we are making, and just paint that in. And we're sort of just placing the colors next to each other as we go, and you can definitely use whatever colors you like, using slightly darker colors here and there to sort of just add a little bit of definition to the different shapes. And you can see I'm using a very loose hand when I'm doing this, so I'm not really too worried about perfect lines or anything, just sort of allowing the paint to go onto the page and letting the water sort of do the work for me. It's mixing the colors together as I go. And if you want to sort of take some of the color away, just let your brush dry out as you're painting. And then just, adding some darker blue on top of the lighter blue, and just allowing little bits of the lighter blue to kind of show through a bit, but not too much. But you can see how it creates sort of like a nice dark line between the blue and the red. It's almost like a purpley kind of color as the two colors mix together with the water and the paint. And I'm also adding some sort of visible brush strokes to add detail in that way as well. And bringing in some blue now at the back part of our rooster, and taking the line a little bit more out to sort of form that shape of the back of so as the neck goes down, and then we're running now into the back of the rooster, so it's a more angular line. And then I'm bringing in some of the lighter colors again, and you can see just kind of switching between colors as you're going. Just these could be any colors that you're using. This particular rooster is going to be quite bright and quite colorful, which is how I like it. So bringing those colors out and letting the water dry as I'm painting. And then now coming in with a sort of dark blue, much darker blue, and adding little details here and there, sort of allowing those to be like the feathers almost that will be visible as the painting finishes. And at the end, just a little bit more color dragging down, blending as you're going, letting the water do the work. That's key with watercolors, is the water is really essential. It really does make a huge impact on how the paint comes out, how much water you use, how little water you use. So just sort of play around with that, and that's the idea with this painting. It's just to really have fun and enjoy it. So now I'm taking almost like a black, and I'm doing a little bit of a darker outline just along the edges of the back of the turkey, just defining the rooster, just defining anything that I can with a little bit more depth to give it that final feel. Like, so sort of I'm just sort of playing around, letting the brush guide me, and blending that color, dry brushing it kind of into the other colors as I go. And dry brush just means that your brush is now completely dry. You've sort of run out of paint, and you just sort of drag it along. It's quite a nice technique to use if you want to sort of just add some texture on your paintings. And just here we go with a little bit of darker colors, darker details, adding those in, the final touches. And this is kind of where we're going to leave the rooster. I hope you enjoyed painting this, and follow along for our next painting, which is going to be of a really cool bird that's also super easy to do. And hope you enjoyed this rooster. For our next easy to make watercolor painting, we're going to be painting a Eurasian Blue Tit Bird. These are beautiful birds that come out. You see them all through the year, but it's really nice in the winter to see them quite often. once all the leaves have lost their branches. So this is where we're going to start. You're making a cap on the head and then doing a little line down for the wing, as well as a little bit of blue on the stomach area. So you can see kind of the shape. Some of the lines are a little bit more rounded, some are shaped, some are lined. And then the next thing we're going to do is take a black, and this bird has this very distinct streak across its eye. So we're first going to mark a little area for the eye using that black, and a very, very fine brush is best for this part of the bird. And then we're going to create this line going over its eye, and starting kind of from the one side and dragging the paint all the way. So we do the little beak and then dragging the paint all the way to the end of the head. And yeah, just sort of following that shape and then filling that color in, leaving a little tiny bit of white around where the eye is so that the eye is still distinct. So there we go, and then filling in all of the rest of the color into the space. Next up, we are going to use that black again and drag down over the top of the wing a little bit of black there, detailing that part. And now it's coming in, just filling in little spaces, making sure the shapes are all how we want them. And then we are going to carry on with the tail at the bottom. So dragging that blue paint all the way down, just sort of indicating those areas. And this is obviously a kind of watercolor painting where we're not doing any sketches first, we're just doing it as we go. So this can be sometimes trial and error, but it's honestly I quite enjoy painting like this with watercolor, because what you get at the end is always really, really fun to see. So just adding little details, kind of continuing the shapes, indicating where the lines are, and also just adding slightly darker color onto the original blue to make it a little bit more defined and detailed. Now rounding the wing and leaving little bits of white, because this bird does have a little bit of white on it in some areas. And now the next part is going to be the yellow belly, which is really distinct about this bird. So we're going to take that yellow, and make sure your brush is really clean when doing this. And it would be best to kind of wait for the blue to dry, but if you don't have time, you can go for it. Just be very careful not to mix the colors too much, and painting that stomach area of this Eurasian Blue Tit Bird. Now we're going to be adding in the feet and the branches. So bring in a little bit of brown, and we're going to create some little rounded lines, tiny little lines that just indicate where the feet of this Eurasian Blue Tit are. And then we're going to take a brown and create the branch where the bird is sitting on. So we'll start kind of far out and bring that to where the bird is, and painting very just lightly around the toes and bringing that over the overlapping the tail part, because the bird's tail is behind the branch. So we want to fill in then that gap that we left earlier with the branch, and just adding a little bit of darker edges with a slightly darker color along the edges of the branch. And this is kind of similar to what we did with the rooster earlier on. It's just adding some dark color along the edges and blending that in. So you can see here, just adding lots of darker color onto our lighter color. So watercolor very often is about adding layers it's just about playing with the layers, adding color, sometimes giving color time to dry and then adding another color of layer. So it's quite a process, watercolors, but it's definitely a lot about layering and just continuing to add more and more colors as you go. So now just filling in some extra areas, but yeah, if you make a mistake, that is also another tip, is you can always just keep a paper towel next to you and just dab out that color immediately, because it's so wet still, it will come out of the paper and you'll be able to paint over it once it's a little bit more dry. So yes, this is the final part of our Eurasian Blue Tit. Any just extra details that you can add to define things here and there. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now, just defining lines wherever I can, and also just making some little details for the feathers, and that's what can be done with the darker color. Kept kind of having to go over these little feet just to make sure that they were visible. And also, just keeping them kind of light as well. So, so I hope you've enjoyed painting this Eurasian Blue Tit as well as the rooster earlier on. And we have one more painting of some beautiful flowers in our next segment of this video. If you've enjoyed this video so far and you found it helpful, please do give it a thumbs up. And we'd love to see your artwork that you create from this. So tag me on Instagram if you do this video, and if you do follow this video and make any of these artworks, I'd love to see them. My Instagram will be linked down below with all the other details. For the next part of our video, we're going to do some lovely loose watercolor florals that are going to be lovely and bright, and I'm going to be doing them on the same page as my Blue Tit, but you could always do these on a separate page. So we're going to start by making little circles using a reddish orangey color, and sort of as you do the circle, bring the brush in sort of a zigzaggy shape outwards. And we're going to make about 5 or 6 of these, and we'll do the little circles and spread them out. Make sure that there is probably about 3 or more centimeters between each flower, so that you have enough space later on to do the petals. So after we've done these loops, we're now going to take a nice bright yellow and paint the middle parts of those florals. So just fill in that nice yellow, and it doesn't matter if your orange or your red fades into the yellow, that's totally fine, as long as there's some yellow that's visible. And then we are now going to take a beautiful pink color, very nice bright pink color, and just go around the edges of your circles. So you'll do that for each one of the circles, and very kind of just follow that same shape as you go. And this color will kind of spread out a bit, but that's okay. With the water, that's fine. The colors might mix together on the page, that's okay. That happens with watercolors, and it's actually sometimes the beauty of watercolor when the colors kind of blend into each other very naturally with the water, and it's definitely fun to paint that way. So now we're going to take this pink. So you can see I've got getting quite a bit of color onto my brush, and I'm now going to be painting the petals around the flower part. So this is a sort of shape. It's a line up and then a sort of loopy line across and then a line down. And I'm going to be making a couple of those around the shape, sort of trying to kind of keep them looking the same. But also these are loose florals, so we're not worried about perfection at all. We're sort of just having fun here. So adding that color very loosely. I think I'm going to have about 5 petals on each flower, and filling in the inside with this lovely light pink. Then I'm taking a slightly darker color and I'm sort of creating some details along my petals. And this just sort of, like, as we've said a few times in this video, it just really helps define the shapes. And because the water kind of blends everything together, it's so important to like keep adding layers of color and just keep adding more color to your watercolor painting. So you'll see this will sort of fade in. I'm then also taking the pink again and going over some of my pink, leaving a little bit of white sort of space on one side of the petal. This just really helps create a distinction between each petal, and sort of showing where the light is hitting, and it just helps make the shapes more visible when painting. So now I'm going to create that same effect for all of my other flowers. Just follow that same pattern as we go. Now that we've finished adding all of the details on all of the petals and we did them all kind of exactly the same, it's now time to add some really nice bright green leaves going next to and around our flowers. So you can see I'm sort of doing a jagged shape when I make the leaf, and then I'm filling it in with as much color as I can. I like to use a sort of lighter green when I create the first layer of the leaf, and then later on I sometimes take a darker green and add on top of that lighter green to sort of create the details, the lines that you see on leaves. So we're filling in this green and just following the shape of the flower, and then painting another one sort of after this. And so after adding a few more of the leaves, it's now time for that darker layer of green. While you painted the other leaves, it may have given them time to dry, and the darker green will show a little bit better on the lighter green since the paper is a little bit drier. And yeah, so that is these beautiful loose florals. I really hope you enjoyed creating this painting, and I hope you will experiment some more with loose florals, and definitely share your painting with me if you follow this tutorial and create one of your own. I'd love to see your paintings, and those social media links will be down below. Definitely tag me in a photo. And thank you so much for joining me for this video. I really hope you found these 3 watercolor paintings to be easy and a nice beginning level for you on your watercolor journey. Please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you again soon.